My name is Patrick Finley. The date is April the 25th, 2022. I'm standing at Old Liberty Cemetery in Oneonta, and from the distance you can see Oak Hill Cemetery, a beautiful cemetery. Actually, both of these, you could actually really say they're the same cemetery. Oak Hill was an extension, basically, of Old Liberty, but anyway, I look up on that hill, and in my 58 years of living, I could literally name hundreds of people that are buried on that hill. But today I'm going to focus on Old Liberty Cemetery, and I'm going to pan the camera to the right. This cemetery actually predates the town of Oneonta. Some of the earliest graves were before the Civil War in the 1850s. And I'm going to pan around. You can see the old tombstones. But one of the graves that piques my interest is this one right here. This is the grave of Augustus A. Ingram. He was the main founder of Oneonta, and he was actually a captain in the Civil War. A lot of the old folks called him Gus, or Captain Gus. In fact, he was friends with a lot of my ancestors. And but he was the first mayor of Oneonta, and he developed Ingram Land Company in the 1880s, and he actually was the first one to plat out Oneonta in the different lots and developed it. And so actually, without Augustus Ingram, there probably wouldn't be an Oneonta, at least as we know it today. And But I look around this cemetery, and I think I'm probably kin to about a quarter of the people buried here. I think all the history they saw, the lives they lived, and it's just fascinating to think about it. Walking around this cemetery, one feels their mortality. You think about, even if the good Lord gives us 100 years of living, it's the blink of an eye. But I'm going to go to a couple of other graves. I'm going to take a pause, and I'll be right back. This is the grave of my great-great-grandparents, Thomas C. Whited and Rhoda Hendricks Whited. Tom was a little bit too young for the Civil War, but he did have a couple of brothers fight in the war and died in battle. This family, the Civil War, really did hit hard, the Whited family, and Thomas was born in 1851 and died in 1915. My grandfather Odell was Tom's grandson, and my grandfather used to tell me a lot of stories about his grandfather Tom, and too many to go into detail on this video. But Tom was quite a fella. He farmed all his life, was very successful, made a lot of money. He actually donated the land where the little brick church was. He helped build that. And over to the left are two graves. These are my third great-grandparents. Tom's parents are buried here. This one here is a James T. Whited. He was born in Georgia in 1800 and died in the 1850s. This is probably one of the first graves, one of the oldest here in Old Liberty Cemetery. And this is his wife, Cynthia. She was a Glover, Cynthia Glover Whited. She was born in 1808 and died in 1894. But I think of all the lives these folks lived, and yeah, the stories they could tell walking around here. And I'm fixing to go to the black section of the cemetery. When I was a small boy, my dad told me some former slaves were buried over on the back side, and I'm going to take a break and we'll go walk over to that section. This is the black section of Old Liberty Cemetery. It's sad to think that even in those days, people were segregated even in death. And there used to be an old fence that separated the two cemeteries, and it's sad to think it was that way, but fortunately they did tear down that fence years ago. And I'm scanning the this part of the cemetery, you can see a lot of the old names: the Statons, Ratchford, Hodge, Polk, Alexander, Stockdale. A lot of the old African American names, and a lot of them still live here in Oneonta today. And I think of all the hardships these folks went through, and you know, what lives they lived. I know a lot of good folks are buried in this cemetery, and I'm sure there were a few bad. You know, throughout history, we have to take the bad with the good, and I think it's very important that we focus more on the good. We certainly need to remember all the injustices of the past, but I think it's very important to also remember the good and try and honor our ancestors who helped build this great country. Flaws and all, they were human beings, and they lived their lives, and they lived and loved and tried to make a living. And so there's a lot of history in this cemetery, actually, for the black and white. So much history that needs to be preserved. And I hope you enjoyed this video today.